What is going on, Fan Clan? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Danny Phantump, and we are on our second card store tour. Today we are going to be checking out a place called Cowabunga Comics. It's about a 45-minute drive from my house, and they have a bunch of different stuff, including Pokemon. This was the first store that I ever went to a pre-release for, and it was actually in a different location at the time. I went to a pre-release for Roaring Skies. I still remember the first cards, the first pack. I think it was the first pack that I opened. If you've never been to a pre-release before, we'll talk about it in the future. We've talked about it in the past. But basically you get, in the past you got a few packs, like 4 packs when you first arrived. I opened up a Rayquaza, a colorless Rayquaza EX from Roaring Skies. I was super excited about it. I ended up building my pre-release deck around it, and it was a lot of fun. But we're going to go in here. This is a new location for them. I've been here before for League Cups and League Challenges and things like that. A really cool place inside, but let's go take a look. So, this is the store right behind me here. This is called Cowabunga Comics. It's really cool because it's got 2 different levels. I've been here before for events, and the events were upstairs. So, it's kind of a weird location, but it works really, really well. It's more than just Pokemon. It's a lot of comic books, a lot of really cool stuff. So, let's go have a look.
My name's James from Cowabunga Comics, and I had the store for going on 7 years now.
So I was talking to James before, and Cowabunga is actually the first store that I ever went to a pre-release for. I went to Roaring Skies pre-release back when it was at its old location. Can you tell me about, I guess, the process of going from, it was at a different location before, and then you took it over?
Well, we had been at a different location before, No, I had that location for about 3 years. The guys that opened that had been open since about 2005.
Okay.
So once we sort of outgrew that, this building opened up, and this is about 5 times the size of the old one. And it has parking, which is nice. Very hard to find in downtown right now.
Very cool. And I like the layout of it too, with like the upstairs. I've been here before for events upstairs, which is kind of cool because it's separate from, I guess, you know, the storefront aspect of it all.
Which is closed right now because we have this downstairs area, but we will be opening that up again soon for gaming.
Cool. So what roles do you have as owner? What do you all have to do on a daily basis? Just take me through like the day-to-day or week-to-week operational process for you.
You pretty much don't have a lot of downtime. You're always checking emails, you're always putting orders in, you're always making sure that orders are correct, which these days, you know, you have to really be on top of sourcing things too, because like I'm sure in the card world it's the same thing as the comic market too. There's a lot of things we can't get. Comic top loaders we haven't been able to get for a year now. So you have to try to find different places. Like last week we had to order bags and boards from 4 different places and hope that one of them would show up in enough time. So now we have a lot of bags and boards, which is great because eventually we're going to hit a point where we're not going to be able to get them again at all. It's just kind of this strange confluence where 4 places were out. We placed orders with 4 of them, and then they all came at the same time. But now a good chunk of those places don't have any right now. So I mean, I guess the normal day-to-day stuff has been very different in the last year. So it's just added more complications and challenges. Just being able to kind of roll and adapt. If you can't get something, find a place to get it. We had a pretty big event that was, or I should say a release for an event, where our distributor lost the order and forgot to ship it. And so it was the day before the event, and I had to drive to their warehouse to pick it up, which luckily is not, half the country away. So there are little things like that where you have to be willing to do it because you have to have the product. So you can't just say, well, they didn't ship it, we're not going to have it till Monday, we can't run it. You got to do whatever you have to do to make sure that you have it.
And that's the difference between like an employee and a store owner. You don't really have a choice in that matter. You have to.
No. Unless you want to give the money up.
Yeah, exactly. Which you don't.
No.
So here at this store specifically, compared to a lot of other stores that I've been to, you have this huge variety of products, like just a ton of different things. Mm-hmm. How important is it for the success of the store to carry such a diverse range?
I think it's pretty important. I think one of the things that I've always thought is you don't want to sell too many things that you don't know. So there's a lot of stuff we have here. I know comics very well. I know at least older video games very well. I know board games. And I'm lucky enough that I have people that know Magic and Pokemon and things like that I don't know as well that are able to handle that for me. But then once you start getting into things like sports cards and RC cars and die-casts, there's a lot of that stuff that people have asked us to carry, but we don't know anything about it, and it would be too much of a learning curve for us to carry that. There's enough stuff that we want to carry that we do know about that we don't even have room to bring in right now. So I think you have to, as long as you can speak to the product and be enthusiastic about it and knowledgeable about it, I think it's great to have a diverse selection. You just have to make sure that you don't go too overboard and carry things that you're not able to hand sell to somebody. You have to be able to answer questions.
What events do you all run in store? Or will you run, I guess?
Yeah, again, that's definitely a time-dependent question because we used to run, we'd do Pokemon, D&D, Magic, Warhammer. We would have a lot of different things that would, X-Wing every once in a while, things like that would be run. We'd have our weekly games, and we'd have some things that were played monthly, some groups that would meet here every other week. Things like that. Right now, Magic is sort of back to Friday night clockwork. Warhammer is every Sunday. We have on Wednesdays someone who's running Marvel Crisis Protocol, which is actually right over there.
Oh, cool.
So that is sort of starting to take off. We're slowly expanding things again, but everybody's got different needs for what they want to get out of gaming at the moment. There's a lot of people in the 1 year downtime that either got out of gaming altogether, got into different habits, different gaming patterns. Maybe now people are playing in somebody's basement, or they're playing in their kitchen or something. Sure. So it's a challenge to try to get people back, but there's a lot of enthusiasm. There's a lot of people that are excited about being able to get back in, and so we're trying to not just jump headfirst back into everything. We're taking a slow approach and making sure that everybody feels comfortable, and so far it's been working.
Nice. So piggybacking off of that, what you were just saying then, what are you doing to market and advertise your business to maximize the reach as you are expanding back to being open?
Well, most of it I would say is word of mouth. Never really spent money on advertising. It's kind of just been organic growth. And we're kind of doing that same thing. We have sort of our Rolodex of people that come in and play, and that know the other people that come in and play, and they'll have contact information that we don't have. So I'd say leveraging that is probably the most effective thing that we have for getting the word out that things are kind of getting back to normal.
Okay. How do you handle pricing of products and allocations for popular items?
I guess 2 different answers. Allocations are just something you have to handle by accepting them. I mean, there's really nothing you can do. If you're allocated 25% of product that you ordered, there's nothing you can do about it, other than go on the secondary market and pay an outrageous amount for them. But then, there's really nowhere for you to make money on it. So I would say, as far as allocations, you just take the hit and roll with it. There's nothing you can really do. You can maybe source through multiple distributors, but that doesn't always work for you.
Sure.
Then I would say after that, as far as how do you price rare items, or not rare items, but more in-demand items, I think you have to be, it's half and half. You have to be fair to the market that's coming in to buy from you, you know, so you can't just price things at like whatever a hot new set's selling for online. You have to give people a reason to come in, but at the same time, I think, you know, don't leave all the money on the table. I think Vivid Voltage, for a while when it was selling for like $8 a pack online, I think you're selling it for $5 or something like that. And that would be a question for Sam. But, you know, with comics, which might be certainly something I can speak to more, the comic market now, every week there are new hot books that come out. I mean, this week it was reprints of a book called Stray Dogs that had movie poster variant covers. And by the time those hit the shelf, they were $25, $30 books. We ordered 5 of them. We had people special order, or 3 people special ordered them, so we had 2 copies of each that went to the shelf. And we could hold them back, but people are expecting to find them when they come in. And, you know, and we're going to limit that. It's 1 per person. You can't come in and buy all the copies off the shelf. But people expect to see those books, and you have to have them on the shelf. You know, you can't just keep everything back. Same thing with cards.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. How much capital would you recommend to open a brick and mortar store?
Depends on what you want to do. If you're going to be more service-based, like you're going to be an event-driven store, which there are a lot of gaming stores that are, I'd say we're probably about 60% comics and 40% everything else. So obviously we're a lot more product-driven. If you're in a store that runs off of events, you can go in with less because you're able to really plan everything out. You know, you know how much table space you have. You know what you're going to charge for a certain event. Maybe people buy in ahead of time for an event, so you can say, I need this amount of product. And then you have your ancillary product, sleeves, pizza oven, you can sell pizzas and water and soda and Skittles or something. You can kind of plan out, you know, how much you need to pay next week's bill if you're just running sort of event-driven gaming stores. So probably a minimal amount for that. And you can grow it probably pretty quickly by realizing, you know, figuring out what your burn rate is, figuring out what you need to, you know, how much you need to bring in, what are the ancillary items that are selling better, and bring more of those in. If you want to, you know, kind of go whole hog, these days you're going to want to have kind of back catalog product. So you're going to want to have older product to bring people in, stuff that you can't just find online. So if you have some of that in your personal collection, that might make things easy. But then again, you're getting rid of your personal collection, which is something I always advise against doing, which means you got to be able to source that stuff. And so that's going to be a considerable amount now. I mean, last year, everything from Pokemon to comics, as you know, has jumped significantly. So you got to look at the cost outlay for something like that and say, if I really want to go in deep on having a good back catalog of Pokemon or comics or video games, you got to be willing to invest a lot of money in it. I don't know, if I just had to spitball a number out, between fixtures, probably a year of operational expenses, inventory, payroll, I'd say do it right. I'd want $100,000 to, you know, just jump into it without anything and open a store from the ground up.
That's what the last person said. So
really?
You're right on.
Perfect.
You guys had similar answers. He didn't go into it as in depth as you did, which is great. And I think a lot of people are like, they want to know what they're putting their money into, you know, what it's all costing. What benefits are there to running brick and mortar versus only online?
Well, the benefits, I mean, it's certainly, it's hit and miss. I'd say as far as benefits go, you're going to get more impulse sales, obviously. Impulse sales online are something that you really don't have. It's a market that's driven by people seeking a specific item out. And you might be able to, I mean, I haven't seen how your site works, but you might have recommendations on the side. If you bought this card, maybe this card will complement it or something, so you can get an impulse buy like that. But it's different than having people just being able to come in and shop. And then that leads to its own kind of question of if you want to have, you know, a lot of impulse sales, you're gonna have to carry a lot of stuff that you don't necessarily want to carry otherwise. Keychains, bobbleheads, things like that. A lot of people that I know that have stores like, I'm not going to carry that stuff. But they also don't have families that come in and shop there. So it's like you have to maybe sometimes carry things that aren't something you like or enjoy. And I mean this a little differently than when I said don't carry product lines that you don't know. But it's just, if anybody can sell somebody a keychain with Deadpool's head on it, you know, or Batman's head on it or whatever. So stuff like that really helps for impulse sales. That's certainly an advantage. People just come in and they'll shop and they'll find things that look cool. If you bring in enough of that stuff, that's kind of gravy over the stuff that you know will sell. And that's not to say that you couldn't complement it with having an online presence too, which I think most people these days probably should. But I would say that that's probably the single best difference is getting those impulse sales.
Okay. Again, continuing with what you mentioned, because you brought it up, which is perfect segue into my next question. How are you maximizing your online sales?
We're not.
Okay.
Oh no, absolutely we're not. And a lot of it's we just don't have time to.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
I mean, this keeps us so busy. And
how many people do you have here that work here for the
four of us?
Okay.
That's another kind of dangerous thing is if you have really great stuff and you have it online, are people seeing it if they come into your store?
Right.
And if your best stuff's online, you're kind of doing a disservice to people that come into the store. So then you have to balance that out. Well, if your best stuff's in the store but also online, all you got to do is miss one thing. You know, if somebody buys it in store and you don't take it down online, $100 card, $100 comic, whatever it is, you know, all of a sudden you got a little bit of an issue. And the busier you are and the more things that you have up, the more problems that's going to cause. You know, so I think it's certainly doable at the moment. Like I said, we're not maximizing it. You pretty much just have to get a full-time person, I think, these days to do it. Then you'd have to have room for storing all of that product that's online. You know, you'd want to keep it separate so somebody can't just come in and purchase it. Or if you have a point of sale system, when somebody buys it, you scan the item, it automatically removes that from whatever your online store is. And stuff like that is helpful, but I don't know how turnkey something like that would be if you'd have to get something like that developed for you. So there's a lot of work that I would say would go into doing that balancing act. And right now we just focus more on the in-store side of things. It was easy when we were closed for 2 months to, you know, during the shutdown, to shift online. But then after that, we really just shipped back into the store. Our best stuff is in the store. If you want the best stuff, you got to come into the store.
Oh, it's tough too because, as you know from comics, with thousands of different issues, some of them are priced, you know, very low. Do you really take the time to, like, I'm not going to list every single common and uncommon, you know, in Pokemon because it's a 25-cent card online.
Exactly. So Pokemon, Magic, 4 or 5 for $1 cards for commons, whatever. Comics, usually the kind of bulk boxes are $1 comics. You know, we call them just dollar boxes, and there's no way that we could list stuff like that.